We are back. It's ATACS, episode 26. We're recording November 19th, so it's technically the week of Thanksgiving. I am your host, Paul from Atlanta, and we have a full crew with us today. We were talking about it before we started recording, and this is, I think, the most people we've ever had in any of our recording sessions. So let's go around. Mr. Nate from Wendell, North Carolina. Hello, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
So are you ready for what's going to be the epic Game of the Year cast?
I'm getting there. I have a lot of things that I want to get to before that.
Yep, and I think pretty much everyone's in that same boat, except for Mr. Flex from Raleigh. I'm sure that you have played everything. You are done with video games forever?
Nope. I have a lot of games left to play.
Yeah, there's just a few.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, though. Ready to play them. I have finished 2 games in the past 2 weeks, though, so that's something.
That's pretty impressive. I have not done any of that. So, yeah. Mr. Ryan from New York. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I am doing well today.
Indeed. This is also the earliest we've ever recorded at a text podcast. Thanks to
largest panel, earliest. The world is coming apart at the seams.
All the records.
That's right. And that very deep voice that you heard was Mr. Will from Greenville, North Carolina. Hello, Will.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, bud. We're gonna record a thing. It's very exciting. And last but not least, Miss Steph from Atlanta. Hello, Stephanie. Your mic's muted.
Hello. There we go.
So before we talk about video games, we're gonna do something a little bit special. We're gonna do what we've termed the ATACS Secret Santa. So Steph, do you wanna talk about this a little bit? Kind of let everyone know what's going on with it.
Yeah, sure. Though it's not very secret of a Santa, because we're going to reveal who is doing what for who here. Yeah. So I thought it would be really fun if we all took names and bought a game for each other and forced that person to play either that wonderful choice or absolute abject terror that we get
Using
from
the
someone
word
else.
forcing makes it sound so, I don't know, like aggressive and antagonistic.
Well, what else do we have on this panel?
Fair enough.
I don't know. Have you heard any of our rankings? Were you there for those?
That's what I call ruthless aggression. So we have pretty much. We're just going to have you draw us some names, Steph, and you're going to let us know who is buying what for what. And then
the panel's trusting me with this.
Yeah,
excited.
I place all my faith in you, Steph.
All right.
So we don't have games picked out for each other yet because we don't know who we're buying for. So stay tuned to the next ATACS where we will let our person know what game they're going to be enjoying. And
first ATACS cliffhanger.
The first ATACS cliffhanger.
Wow, this is like setting all the records, isn't it?
Yeah. So Steph, why don't you kick us off? Let us know who's doing what for what.
All right. So I'm going to shuffle some papers over here.
I can hear the shuffle.
I'm glad we can hear it. That way we know it's happening.
That really plays on a podcast.
It actually is happening. So the first person, so Will be getting a game for Paul.
Yay!
Oh, right.
I really like that.
I'm going to get a co-op game, I bet.
All right. Our next Secret Santa is Nate.
Uh-huh.
And Nate will be getting a game for Flex.
All right.
Word.
All right. Let's see what's going on here. So I will be getting a game not for myself, so let me pick something else.
I mean, you could. You're the decider here.
Ooh, I will be picking a game for Will.
Whoa!
Oh, okay. And then Flex will be getting a game For me. Yeah.
Perfect.
And that leaves us with Paul getting something for Nate.
All right.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous that I was going to pick something that was like me getting something for Paul, and I'd be like, that's really boring.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. All right, so now we know who our person that we're getting a game for is. So
does anyone? I was writing those down. Does anyone want to recap?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Will is buying for Paul. Nate is buying for Flex. Steph is buying for Will. Flex is buying for Steph, and Paul is buying for Nate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what platform it is, just make sure that the person actually has the console for the game that you're trying to give them, or that their computer can run it. So we'll have to figure out some of the case-by-case rules, because obviously we're not going to get, like, World of Warcraft for someone and go, all right, play the whole thing in 6 weeks.
Thank you.
I'm glad you said that, Paul, because I'm a little worried with you giving me something.
I was going to have to
Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
Let's see how you like it, Nate.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we'll have some fun debates next cast about what the rules are, depending on the games that we pick.
Yeah.
Why did you do this to me?
Will, what don't you want to play really bad?
Anything that's Japanese.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That happens to be my specialty.
I actually I was trying to think the other day, like, what would be the most interesting, like, cases, and I think we nailed a few of them, because one of them I was thinking was Steph getting a game for Will. That's just too perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That should be fairly exciting. So more to come on that. As we're saying, it's our first ATACS cliffhanger. We're going to talk about video games, because we're adults. We talk about cool stuff, and we're going to talk about video games.
What are those?
These things that there's a lot of them. They're all really good this year, and there's too many. There's just too much.
Okay.
And somehow I'm still playing Banished, even though all these games came out. I have no idea what happened there. But we're not going to start with me. We're going to start with Nate. So what have you been playing in your neck of the woods, Nate?
Oh, boy. Let's see. The main things that I've been playing since last time are Mario Odyssey, and I've started The Evil Within 2.
Oh, okay.
I want to hear about both of those.
Yeah, so I finished the main storyline in Mario Odyssey, but it turns out the game is like 85% post-game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been chipping away at that. I don't quite know how far I'm going to go with it. I might put it on the back burner for now, and that probably means not come back to it, but maybe someday. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, really quick question. So is that like story, or is it like extra stuff, like collecty stuff?
It's
collectibles.
So here's basically how it works. You go through the main game, you see all the worlds. Each world has at least one like main storyline quest, and then you finish that, and then you move on to the next world once you've gotten enough moons. And then you do that until you reach the finale of the game, which, by the way, finale is pretty good. I will have to say that without spoiling anything.
Yeah, don't spoil that. I've tried not to spoil myself. I'm about halfway through.
It kind of turns into like Sonic Adventure at the end.
Yeah, a little bit.
What?
Which has me worried about the future of Mario, but we'll get to that later.
No, it's good. I liked it. And then the very final scene is really silly and dumb, but
yeah.
That's kind of normal for the ending of Mario games, though.
Yeah, they're kind of weird all the ways, but then basically once you do that, it opens up a couple of extra worlds that weren't part of the main game, and also changes stuff in every existing world.
Ooh.
Oh no, that sounds like Castlevania. Like, now play this upside down.
It's not quite that extreme, but there is just like a ton of stuff everywhere now.
Yeah,
especially since I didn't clear out like all the stuff that was already in each of those worlds. Now it's just like there's so many moons left to get.
Yeah, it basically doubles the
it is
number of moons everywhere.
So it turns into a collectathon right at the end.
Sure.
I mean, it kind of was from the start, but it becomes even more so.
So the main thing is that, when you get enough moons, there are 2 more like finale stages that you can unlock, like secret levels, basically. And so I've done those, and so I feel like at this point I've seen most of what the game has. It would just be going back and combing through all of these stages that I've already been through and finding all the little moons.
Right. So that's basically where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think you have a few more moons than I do, but that's basically what I've seen as well.
Yeah, I'm
and
at 550.
Jesus.
Yeah. I'm at 503.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure Nate knows exactly how I got to that number, because it takes 500 to unlock the final world, and you get 3 moons from beating that one.
Yeah.
So I did the bare minimum to see the world, the actual world.
So yeah, I mean, there's some cool stuff post game. Like a couple of the things have been neat and interesting that I've found. But I don't know if I quite feel like going back, and because like
that's what I was going to ask you.
To find all of the moons in the worlds that you've already been through, it really is like going through with a fine-tooth comb and just like find every rock and turn it over kind of situation.
I mean, and some of them seem even way like there's a lot of that, and like where it almost feels like, you know, the Mario equivalent of pixel hunting, where you're just touching everything. But some of them are seem way more obtuse.
Some of them are.
Like you have to talk to the right person, and like, or like some combination of like talking to the right person, or like pound the right spot on the ground, or wear the right costume, and it'll like be like a series of obtuse things that's really hard to suss out and into it. And you almost have to like really understand the game's logic, which doesn't seem very like cohesive all the time to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there always is at least some amount of logic behind it, I think, and like I've sort of developed a sense for that, so I can usually say like, I bet there's something over here. I just have to figure out exactly what I need to do to get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I have a question for both of you. So I know when this game first was announced, like one of the things that we all lost our minds over was the gameplay mechanics and how fun it looked. I'm about halfway through the storyline. So for me, nothing has, like, I don't know, like changed. Like I'm still like really excited by everything. As far as you guys are, has any of that gotten like repetitive or old, or was there always something new and exciting to find?
It's a little repetitive, I think.
Yeah.
I think like that game plays really well. I think the movement options that you have are really fun. Throwing the hat and bouncing off of it and doing like triple jumps and backflips and all that stuff is still really fun to do. But the game very rarely asks you to do those things. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say is like, I think the platforming feels good, but this game feels so little like a platformer.
Yeah. It really is an exploration game first.
Yeah. It really is about, like Nate was saying, you're going through these levels with a fine comb, like just trying to find stuff. Like it feels way more about just poking around for moons than doing any real platforming.
Oh yeah, and it feels to me, and we made this comparison. I'm not sure if it was on the cast or if it was when we were just talking. It feels like an old time like Spyro game to me, and I loved Spyro, so that's not a bad thing. But it feels more like Spyro than Mario.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I think that they do that very well. And I've enjoyed what I've played of it, and I think I could probably continue to enjoy it, but probably not like to the level that I need to actually go through and find the like 400 moons that are left.
Yeah. I think that's where I reached as well, because like as I was going through the worlds, like I was enjoying, and I tried when I first got to a world to like explore it pretty thoroughly. So I got a pretty good number of moons. Like I had almost 400 moons when I finished the main game. So I was being pretty thorough, and I enjoyed like just seeing the worlds and exploring the worlds. And I would just do one pass, get my moons and move on. And then when I finished the game, it unlocked all that stuff. Like I went back to one world and like all the wind went out of my sails of like, I feel like I've seen this world. I don't feel excited to like go like retraverse the world I'm sure it would take multiple times to actually find every moon, because some of them are extremely well hidden.
Is there an official count, like how many moons there are?
It's like 900 and something.
What?
Yeah, it's over 900.
But then there's a weird thing where you
I
can.
know there's a hack where you can
So-
keep
You
finding
can just
moons.
buy 'em.
What, 9,000?
So
Yeah.
technically, so I don't know the exact number. So each world has a list of moons to get. So you could go add up all the number of moons on all those lists, and it's 900 something. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah.
But there's technically infinite moons in the game you can acquire, because there are moons you can acquire that don't go on those lists.
That's too many moons.
Too
Yeah,
many.
and your counter actually caps at 999. It won't roll over to 1,000.
Yeah,
but-
so I guess technically the max is 999, but you could buy up to that without finding all the moons.
Right.
And does that remove the moons from the worlds, like whenever you buy them like that,
No.
or is that just okay? So basically, you can get up to 999 moons, but
and there's still a lot of moons left to find.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird structure.
It
And
is
I
kinda
kind of
weird.
wish they wouldn't let you buy infinite moons.
Mm-hmm.
I think why they do that is like so to unlock the final optional world, you need 500 moons that I already mentioned. My assumption is they put that in there, so I don't think it's spoilery to say how you get the infinite moons. Do you think, Nate?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
we've already
you
said
can
buy
you
them.
can you can buy them with coins. That's what it is.
Right.
So I think they just put it in there so like if you didn't want to go find moons and you wanted to get to like that 500 mark and you were like 10 away or something, be like, I'm going to buy 10 moons from this shop.
Mhm.
I think
So-
that's why they probably put it in there.
Or
Yeah, I think so.
it just could be a really clever take on Nintendo's commentary on pay to win. I'm just saying.
But you can't spend real money on it, so
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why Nintendo. That's their commentary.
It's a
Yeah,
Nintendo-like solution.
It's a Nintendo-like solution to loot boxes, really.
you can also unlock costumes by getting more moons. So you could theoretically buy a bunch of moons to unlock more costumes.
And then not have money to buy the costumes with. 'cause
That's
you
the
spend them on
thing. Is
moons.
like I think you would run out of coins before you you might as well just go find the moons because you'll probably find those just as easily as you do coins.
Yeah, those costumes get expensive.
Yeah, they do.
Um,
But anyway,
Yeah, and there is-
I feel like it sounds like we're being a little down on this game, which
I was
don't
about to
want
say, why do
come
you hate
across.
this game so much?
I actually do really like it. I just think I've hit a point where I'm like, I'm good. I don't really need to find all the rest of these.
yeah, it's a weird game because there's a lot in it, and Steph asked if it's repetitive, and there's a lot of repetitiveness in the moons themselves too, because there's a lot of moons you get by doing the same thing. That you'll see a lot, like recurring themes. But it's just a weird game. Like it almost doesn't even feel like a Mario game in some ways because it is so removed from platforming. And I think where they get a handful of platforming challenges, I think in the end in those bonus worlds.
Yeah.
Did you get all of the moons in those bonus worlds, Nate?
No, I just did the main ones through those, and I haven't gone back in yet.
Okay, so the first of the bonus
first one
worlds,
looked like it had a bunch of moons.
yes. Yeah, that one has a bunch of moons. Once you beat the story thing in there, which, by the way, they make you fight those same bosses way too many times.
Yeah, those bosses aren't even that fun, and
No,
they
they're
make
not.
you fight them a bunch. So
Yeah.
There's one end game secret challenge is like a boss rush type thing, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like the third or fourth time you have to fight those
Yeah.
bosses that you fight throughout the entire main game. But yeah, once you beat that, then it opens up all these additional challenges in that bonus world, and I think that's where they put the hardest platforming
Okay,
challenges.
I should go do those
Yeah.
then.
I intentionally went back and did those because like that's what I wanted to see in this game.
One of the post game things that I've done that I have enjoyed, and I don't know if you did any of these, are the Koopa races on each world.
I did some of those, yes.
Those are pretty fun because you have to like find your way from point A to B in these like sandbox worlds the fastest way possible.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
Yeah, those are good. Like that's of the ways I've seen that you get moons that are the same in every world, that's the best one by far.
For sure.
Yeah, and those platforming challenges that are in that first in-game world were pretty good. I wish the game had more of that stuff.
I mean,
because there were only like 4 or so of those in that world. And I would have preferred more of that. And I feel like that highlights like how this game is different from other Marios more than anything. Is that's like you have a crap ton of moons to collect, and very few of them actually involve like platforming.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, collecting stuff can be fun, but it can also get really tiresome.
Yeah.
And I also think, tell me what you think of this, Nate. I think this game is by far, by orders of magnitude, the easiest Mario game.
I think that's probably true. I thought 3D World was pretty easy overall.
Yeah. I didn't do the final challenges in 3D World.
Yeah, those were
so I
pretty
can't
hard.
compare on that front. But like I have tried the final challenges in a handful of Mario games, and I did what appeared to be the hardest moons in this game, and they were not that taxing.
Yeah, like the final stuff in 3D World is probably harder than anything in this game, but
Right. That's what I'm getting at, I guess.
But like I think there are probably more difficult things in this one than I remember from 3D World, at least.
Right.
Even if they weren't quite as hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of many things in this game that were that challenging. I think I've seen the hardest stuff. So the hardest moons for me are ones I haven't gotten, and it's the stupid jump rope and volleyball challenges.
Yeah.
I got the jump rope ones.
Yeah, I got the jump rope one. The volleyball one I did give up on.
Yeah, I kept getting to like 89 on the jump rope and then messing up.
That's funny.
Yeah. The volleyball one I didn't even try. I like saw what it was doing. I was like, nope, no thank you.
It is so slow.
It is.
The little remote car controlled thingy, like that one made me very angry.
Oh yeah. I do really like New Donk City. Like that is probably my favorite world in the game. I think it's fun to move around. I like the little like flicky poles that you use to jump up buildings.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, you know, this game, you know, it's gotten great, you know, critical reception. There's a lot of like conversation around it as being like, you know, it's like, holy crap, they came out with like the newest generation's great Mario game. You know, it's like it's a whole lot of, you know, hyperbole, I think is probably the best word.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that, you know, yes, it's a good game, but it sounds like you guys aren't quite on board with it being like, you know, a shining beacon of you know what good like what a good Mario game is. I mean, it's good, but is it really as great as people are talking about in your opinion?
I think it's good, and it is very different from most other Mario games. Like the closest one is probably 64, and it's still different enough from that it's hard to compare them directly. But I think it's good, but I definitely wouldn't put it like, oh, this is the 17th coming of Mario, whatever it is.
Right.
They've been around for forever.
Right. Mario never dies.
But I also, I don't know, like, you know, put my flag in the sand a little bit here and say, like, I always feel like Mario games get way better reception than what I ended up feeling about them. Like, okay. I always come out of Mario games being like, yeah, it was fine. I don't know.
Yeah,
right.
I think I agree with that for the most part. And yeah, I'm similar. It's like I think this is a very well made thing, but I think the reception is a bit overblown.
Okay.
And I guess one last thing for Nate. I kind of got to a point by the end of the game where I like never wanted to be playing as something other than Mario. I kind of got tired of all the alternate forms and didn't think a lot of them were that fun.
Hey, Mario just controls really well.
He
so
does.
I can see that.
Yeah, Mario controls great. I think he controls way better than anything else.
You know, one thing that I figured out that when I realized it was kind of cool was in any ice level, when you slide around and it sucks because it's an ice level, Goombas don't slide.
Yep, I figured that out really early. So that is kind of nice.
That's pretty funny.
Pro tip.
Yeah, Goombas don't slide.
So I'm sure that we'll be having a lot more conversation around Mario Odyssey as it relates to our Game of the Year stuff. Also, I still haven't. I think I put like 6 minutes into it and then put it back down. So I need to dig back into that as well. But
it's a long game.
Yeah, and you know I'm probably just going to critical path it just to see all the scenes and you know so I can actually have an informed opinion. But I'm probably
we mentioned last time that we thought it was probably the longest Mario game. I'm very confident in saying at this point it is by orders of magnitude the longest Mario game.
Yeah, certainly to get everything.
If you get everything.
I think the mainline story is still pretty sizable, but not overwhelming, and I think that's definitely worth seeing because I think there's good stuff there.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
That's what I'm going to be focusing in on as soon as I get around to that, hopefully before Game of the Year.
Yeah.
But Nate, you said you've been playing something else?
Yeah, so when I finished the main game in Mario, I, was trying to pick something else to start with. So real quick, I guess, I wanted to play Wolfenstein II.
The new Colossus.
The new Colossus, and bought that on my computer and booted it up, and that game likes to crash.
Oh, that's problematic.
Yeah, so I haven't really been able to play that. So then I was like, oh, I'll play this other game on my PlayStation. So I've been playing The Evil Within 2.
Aha. So have you finished it, or are you still in the process of it? Or okay,
I have not finished it. I'm still fairly early in the game. I've put in like 6 or maybe 7 hours at this point.
Okay.
And you were a big fan of the first game.
Yes, I like that first game a lot.
And you're playing it on PS4, you said?
PS4, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Does this feel similar to the first game?
It is similar, but it is also more different than I would have expected when they announced the game. So the first game, very Resident Evil 4 style movement and enemy design and weapons and all that. Linear story. You go from chapter to chapter, moving through different areas, fighting bosses, getting upgrades, and that was the game. This one, They said, let's have an open world.
Oh boy!
I mean, it is 2017.
Which, when I first heard that, I was like, okay, I don't really know how that's going to work. But I like it, actually, surprisingly. So far, at least. Did anybody else, who else has played The Evil Within before? Do I need to give a story synopsis here?
I don't do stories.
Let's see if you can.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I played The Evil Within and I couldn't tell you a thing that happens.
All right, so Sebastian, main character, policeman.
All right.
He is investigating some paranormal stuff.
Okay.
In the first game, at a mental institution. Stop me when this sounds cliche.
It sounds cliche.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So this is Outlast? Gotcha.
Yep. So basically, this game revolves around not Umbrella from Resident Evil. Yeah, fake Umbrella, new branded Umbrella.
Making not zombies.
Making not zombies in a Matrix-like dream world where people control how things happen by their minds.
Right.
So it's like a collective unconscious mind world where things go bad and monsters.
Okay. So it's like Mementos.
Yeah. It's Mementos.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I'm translating for the rest of the crew.
Yeah. So that's the basic setup. So the first game is you get stuck in this horrible dream world, fight not zombies created by not Umbrella, and find your way out. And then the game ends. So this game.
Wait, but you haven't mentioned Leslie.
Well, I don't even remember who that was.
Leslie was like this mousy mental patient who apparently was always walking away, and you're like, come back, Leslie, and Leslie's like,
yeah, exactly.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, in the game it was more like, oh, fucking Leslie again.
That's funny.
Makes me think of Fear, like freaking Alma.
Yeah.
Nah, Leslie's not like Alma.
Memorable way. Sebastian's second run, going back into Dream World for a new mission, and this time it takes place instead of in a mental institution. The Dream World has been constructed as like a small rural town.
Right.
Okay.
So that is your open world, where you kind of go around this town that is falling apart, and there are monsters everywhere, and chunks of it floating around in the sky, and it's like a really cool looking area. And you're kind of looking for survivors and trying to find your ultimate mission, which is your main character's daughter.
Okay.
So I haven't gotten like too far into the story yet because I've kind of gotten lost in the open world, just like wandering around finding things and doing side quests. But what was surprising to me, moving this style of what was a very linear narrative, like very scripted heavy game into an open world, is that it still feels like I'm hitting these scripted events, and there's still that level of like rising and falling tension that you would look for in a horror game. And I like am constantly surprised by like, oh, I turn this corner and the camera pans in a certain way and I hear a sound and it feels like a scripted event. But then I remember, oh, wait, I'm in an open world and I didn't have to come to this spot and I didn't even have to come to this spot from this direction. And so that's been really interesting and surprising to me, that it feels like a linear game, but it's completely not.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds kind of neat.
Yeah.
So you said you're only like 6 hours in or so?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, and that game's pretty short, right? It's not like a super long game.
Yeah, I don't think it's incredibly long, and I wonder, because I've been doing almost nothing but side quests, I wonder if they just like front load all the side quests and then I'll just like blow through the main story because I've done all the side stuff, or if they'll keep introducing new side stuff as I go through. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, one of the big complaints that I read about that game is that the game doesn't really tell you that advancing the main story will make it impossible to either collect or complete the side quests. So I know a couple of people were a little perturbed whenever they were just kind of going through and progressing through the mainline story, and then it was like, oh wait, I can't turn this side quest in because something in the main story keeps me from either going back to that quest giver or just something, and now you have a side quest just sitting in your log that you can't do anything with.
I heard that same thing, so I'm kind of trying to avoid that by doing everything now.
Yep. So anyway,
are you enjoying the side quests? Like, do they seem worth doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, like I'll be following, because most of the side quests come from your little like walkie-talkie that you can pick up signals on, and so it'll ping you and say, hey, there's a signal somewhere, and then you pull it up and it'll point you in a direction and say like, hey, there's something over there, you should go check that out. And then you kind of stumble into a little house or just like a street corner or like a little supply depot or maybe some trucks that are pulled off on the side of the road, and there's always like some useful items to loot. There's a lot of like just picking up ammo and crafting items and stuff in the open world. And then a lot, like probably half the time when you do that and find something useful, it'll like trigger a little scripted event where it's like, oh, you accidentally set off a car alarm and now there's a bunch of zombies coming after you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was not a huge fan of the first game.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm trying to get a sense if this would be worth trying given that. And my main complaint with the first game is I felt the pacing was kind of all over the place. Like, I'd have... like, I remember most of the first game, I felt like I was slowly slinking around corridors, picking up a lot of ammo, and then I'd get to like a hallway that would have two enemies, and I would stealthily take them out quickly and not use anything and be like, well, that wasn't really a moment that it felt like they were building up to. And then it would go back to slinking for a long time. And it felt like it never really like, I can only remember like 2 or 3 like big set pieces that kind of like required you to use the stuff you had at your disposal.
Right.
And I remember feeling like the game needed more of that and kind of less scrounging and like just walking through hallways. I remember just like a lot of walking through hallways in that game.
Well, this game is not a lot of walking around hallways. It's a lot of walking down streets.
Great.
So
yeah, like
totally different.
Because I remember enjoying the combat in that game when it was like kind of in an open environment and like, you know, at the risk of constantly saying Resident Evil 4, like the more like kind of semi-open Resident Evil 4 like combat arenas. And the first game didn't have many of those. And like, does this game lean more into that, or like, how does it use its open world?
Not yet. I've had a couple of events that I've triggered in the open world where I've had a handful of enemies to deal with.
Right. And do you know, does it make sense what I'm saying, like the Resident Evil 4 style combat arenas?
Yes, because in Resident Evil 4 there are a lot of points where it's like, okay, you're in this area, it is a combat arena, and there are like 30 guys.
Right, yes.
Just like combing the area. I have not seen that yet in this game.
Okay.
Like I said, probably the most concentrated groups of enemies I've run into so far is like 5 or 6.
Right.
And like they're pretty dangerous, but
yeah, and the individual enemies were dangerous in the first game.
But like you said, if you stealth and use your abilities appropriately, you can probably take out most groups of enemies without using up all your resources.
Right.
So
does it still feel like a good percentage of your time is kind of slinking around, picking up stuff, and then stealthily taking out a couple of enemies?
So far, for sure, that's the game.
Okay.
I don't know what will come from the story missions that I really haven't gotten too much into yet.
Right.
Hopefully, they would have some bigger set-piece moments like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and you're still early for sure, but I guess that leads into the big question of like, do you think this game is different enough or improved enough that you would suggest someone who wasn't big on the first game should try it or should consider it?
I don't know.
You know me that I love Resident Evil 4, and this is this is still Shinji Mikami. This is still kind of that lineage.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say yet. Based on what I've played, I would probably say you probably wouldn't have that much of a different experience with what I've done so far than what you had with the first game.
Right. So it feels similar enough to the first game from what you've seen? Yeah,
I mean, it controls almost the exact same. Most of the weapons are the same. The enemies are basically act the same way.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you're still early. I don't know how long this game is, but... Yeah.
We'll see. I definitely am going to be playing a lot more of that over the next week.
Yeah.
Yep, that's one of those, like, I don't quite know how they did it, but they did an open world game that's apparently not very long, so...
Yeah, the open world isn't very big.
Yeah, it's just normally when I think of open world games, I think of a map full of icons, and it takes a million hours to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, does this... I'm guessing this is probably more quote-unquote open world in the sense that, like, people called Rise of the Tomb Raider open world, or...
It might even be less
bigger than that, even. I'm sorry?
It might even be less than that.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, this is okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think I went back and was like kind of looking at a review, like Jim Sterling's review of the first one, because I remember not liking it, but trying to kind of get a handle on what was going on. And one of these particular sentences in here kind of really resonated with me. It was like, it introduces new mechanics and ideas quickly, not informing the player, waiting for them to replay tracks of the game multiple times and dying until they get it. And I guess I felt that a lot when I played Evil Within. Like I felt like there were all these, like I kept dying, and then it was like this sort of thing where I was kind of like, ugh, how would I have known they wanted me to do that, or how would I have known I couldn't have done that?
Right.
Yeah. The first one definitely had a lot of those like scripted fights where it's like, oh, you could get out of it really easily if you knew how to do this and this.
Yeah, and I never seemed to know.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
I mean, these games are punishing, so like if you just get into a melee fight with a bunch of enemies, you're gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not a noob, Nate.
I wasn't really accusing you of that.
That's funny.
But yeah, they are punishing, and they definitely in this game start you off with like nothing. You have like a pistol and 4 bullets, and then they drop you into the open world, and they're like, "Oh, good luck."
Nice.
So you've been rocking anything else, Nate, or is that the last game that you want to talk about today?
That's it for me.
All right. Let's see. Will, what you been rocking over there?
Well, I've played a lot of games in the past 2 weeks.
All right.
A lot of them are short. Some of them not the most memorable.
I'd really like for you to talk about Purring Quest, if you don't mind.
No, I refuse to talk about Purring Quest. But I will talk for a minute about Orwell, which is probably the most interesting one I played in the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
And if you guys couldn't guess, Orwell is a surveillance game. So it's really kind of hitting the nail on the head with the whole Orwell title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
was that 1984?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
really, you're kind of recruited. Your player is recruited to be a overseer of this, this system called Orwell, this sort of program. And Orwell does a couple things, but mainly you can kind of provide it with like blogs, email addresses, text, like phone numbers, and it will track all the activity on those things that you provide. Additionally, you can pull information from these different things like blogs or profiles or text messages or phone numbers or whatever, and create profiles on people of interest.
Huh.
So the game actually begins with a bomb exploding in a public place, and you're on the case.
All right.
But and so in some ways it's that seems kind of straightforward. But I think the crazy thing comes in is that whenever you upload data to Orwell, it's permanent. And so that's kind of a gamey thing. I mean, I guess I imagine that if there were actually a system like this, you could actually replace the data, like if you got updated information, but it actually kind of increases the stakes. So if someone like, I think the example I used in my sort of Steam review was that like if someone was trying to like let's say I got my tax bill and it was gigantic and I was like, oh my God, the government sucks. Does that mean that I'm a threat to the government? And so that becomes sort of an interesting thing to kind of think about, because a lot of times you'll have kind of two different pieces. So in one, and for instance, like if you're trying to track a relationship, like there are relationships in the game that you're kind of trying to track, like how these people know each other. Are these two people romantically involved? And so there'll be some guys that will like be talking to some girl that they kind of like, and they're like sleazy guys. So they like don't mention the fact that they're actually in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And of course, if it was just an automated system, like how does it really choose like what's true there, even though he's like, nah, I'm not in a relationship with anybody, but because you've actually seen his conversations with his actual girlfriend that he is in a relationship. But if it was just a system, so I think a lot of the game serves to kind of reinforce this idea that a system like this without human oversight is very dangerous.
Right.
And so there's actually a pretty interesting story that's kind of woven through this whole thing. And you meet some kind of interesting people with interesting backstories and interesting motives. They all come off as very real human beings, which is kind of cool. And I think the other thing about the game, and I won't really give away anything, but I think the other thing that's really interesting is it makes you think about how much information you actually give out, like just on like Facebook or whatever. And I don't know that I may be more active on Facebook than other people. I post a lot of political stuff, like articles. But so a lot of the information you pull for these profiles is actually pulled from like public sites like that. You might like the equivalent of like a MySpace. Yeah. And so you go on there and people will have like, what their interests are, and, that you can learn about like where they go to school and what they study and who their friends are and events that they're going to go to. And I called attention to this in the review as well, but I remember a story in The Guardian, which is kind of like a British newspaper, where a woman had contacted Tinder and said, hey, can you send me all the data you have? And Tinder sent her 800 pages of data.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think there's so
now
much.
That's big data.
That's a lot. That's someone who's been on Tinder for either not a long time or, more terrifyingly, a very short time.
So I think the game, I mean, I thought it was really, really adept at doing what it was trying to do. There's actually going to be, I think, another season coming out.
Okay.
But I thought it was a really cool game.
So obviously there's a big like conversation that's happening in like society in like real life about your public facing persona, all of your tweets, all your Facebook posts, and just like all of that stuff. And one of the things that I think the conversation's been centered around is like like the right to be forgotten. Being able to go back to something that you flippantly typed into a website 10 years ago and just having that deleted like permanently. Does the game really have a whole lot to say on like that kind of stuff, or is it just more like a general like, hey, surveillance, and in this case it's like willful surveillance, with you putting yourself out there. Like, does the game really touch on any specific issues, or is it just more of like an overarching kind of, this stuff could be bad, so you should think about that?
Well, I think it definitely has something it's trying to say, and you can kind of make a decision towards the end about, in a sense, about what you think was or was not justified.
Okay.
I will say one of the more interesting things it touches on is this idea that when you start the game, no one knows that Orwell is even a thing. No one knows that the system exists or the program exists. At some point in the game, it seems that some people might learn about what's happening. So like you talk about like public facing persona, that becomes even more relevant. Like, are the things that they're saying, are they saying them because they know you're listening?
Gotcha.
Do they know that that they know that, you know what I mean? This sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it gets a little kind of convoluted like that. But I guess that was my takeaway. Now, of course, I mean, as a work of art, different people may draw different things from it. All I can really give you is the types of things I pulled from it. So it could be that it may touch on some of these issues of, like you talk about, almost like a statute of limitations on your internet comments. That's not anything that I pulled from it, but it could be in there somewhere. It just was something that occurred to me. That's not really an argument that I guess I had been exposed to as much or had thought about as much. This idea that would be that statute of limitations, I guess.
Right. That sounds pretty neat.
It's a neat game.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at it right now on Steam. It's like I think I might. I think I might pick this one up. It looks real cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So
yeah, that's one I've really wanted to play for a long time. How long do you think it took you to play through?
Let me check my playtime. 4 hours.
Okay.
It's like 5 kind of mini episodes, I guess you'd call it. But
cool.
Yeah, and I feel like I went pretty. I wasn't like rushing or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah. Then the other thing I kind of want to talk about, and basically this is 100% the opposite direction, is Call of Duty World War II.
Oh boy, you went there.
So
that's funny.
Going back to its roots.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. So here's the first thing that's funny about this game is I saw an article. And I think I probably mentioned this to some of you guys independently, but I saw an article that said that there was going to be a unique and exciting co-op mode in it. And for some reason,
does this co-op mode involve zombies, perhaps?
It did. Yes.
Okay.
And it was bad.
That's sad.
Because all the zombie modes are bad. But
yeah,
I guess when I first read that, that article, I was like, oh man, is Spec Ops going to come back? Because Spec Ops was a lot of fun. It always has been fun to me. So that made me sad.
I think Spec Ops is done forever.
And so I bought it originally just hoping, because I'm stupid and didn't go back and check to see what kind of co-op mode it was. I just saw it said new and exciting co-op mode, and I was say new and exciting if it was the same crap they've been doing the past 5 games.
Yeah.
And
you thought that.
Yeah, and so I picked it up. And I was like, immediately regretted the purchase. But then I started playing some of the multiplayer, because that's what you do. It's Call of Duty. And it's actually, in my opinion, probably the best Call of Duty multiplayer that there's been since the original Black Ops, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are really like it seems like every enemy takes, 1 to 2 more, each of you takes 1 to 2 more bullets to put down. So that increases the number of situations where it's not just twitchy. The kill streaks, and of course this could be a thing, but they're just not really all that great. So you never really, and then if they are really good, a lot of times they take the player out of the, so if you activate the kill streak, you can't actually be playing at the same time that the kill streak is doing things.
Yeah.
I think on some, it's also kind of, I think someone could make an argument that maybe they're not powerful enough. Like, I think one of them is like a Molotov cocktail. Okay. And you can just sort of throw it down. And I guess if there are 2 guys there, you can catch them both on fire and kill them. But, if you think about that, it's kind of a bizarre kill streak, especially since you already have like a grenade and people, people initially.
Yeah, I was going to say, like how is a Molotov cocktail a kill streak when you have grenades?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, all right, that's a thing.
I guess maybe they had some really potent alcohol in these cocktails or something.
I guess.
There's like a fighter, like a strafe gun, like a fighting, like I guess like a Spitfire kind of strafe thing that usually you can get usually 1, but sometimes 2 people with it. So, I think they're just not super strong. So it's not this sort of thing where the team who's playing really well gets further and further ahead because they get these kill streaks that continue to obliterate everything. They feel like a reward, but they're just not going to completely turn the tide of everything.
Gotcha.
So I'm actually enjoying it a decent amount. I'm having a good time with it.
Are you like whenever you're playing the multiplayer, are you running with like a crew, or are you just doing with like random guys?
2 to 3 other people. Usually.
Okay, so
I still don't like it enough to play solo multiplayer by myself. That's a level I've never gotten to. That like when I have downtime, I'm gonna hop on there and play the multi. But it is a good.
What do you think for you is the main difference from this and like the past couple that's making you enjoy it more?
Well, I think I'm just a slow and methodical player. I think that's one of the things. And the last couple games just did not. Even Titanfall 2, which in some ways I consider. You got your mechs and stuff, but it's still kind of a shooter. It's just so fast. People are running on walls and sliding around. And it's just like
you just want them to slow it down.
I'm just more of a slow paced guy. I guess I like sort of like thinking about. What are the important places that I want to kind of hold? And maybe I'm just old.
Yeah, that's pretty much me, though. Is like, there's too much movement in these things. There's too much stuff going on the screen. I just want to hunker down with my machine gun, put on my jacket, set up camp, and I'm just going to sit right here and look down this hallway.
And
so Will's back of the box quote for Call of Duty World War II is, "This is the Call of Duty for old people."
That's it.
That's how they advertised it, though. Have you seen the ads where they're like,
"You're right,
we got to get the crew back together," and they're all like,
"Yeah, that's right."
They're all like housewives and moms.
So I enjoy it. I think that now the one other thing I want to talk about was stability issues. Like there have been. That's the sort of you're kind of fighting with this game sometimes. We have gotten a lot of black screens where we had to sort of like quit the game, or sometimes it'll go to this intermediate lobby. And when you're in the intermediate lobby, kind of between matches, everything looks like a loading symbol. And so it's almost like it's loading in your gear so that you can actually mess with it again. Maybe I want to change out a perk or change out an attachment. But it never loads, and then the next match starts. And so I'm like, okay. And then there are some issues where for the longest time, we couldn't figure out how to actually vote on the next map. You have to actually pull up. You have to like hit one of your triggers to actually pull up the thing that lets you vote. And so for a long time, we were like, well, I don't know where that happens. We still, and I've put probably 4 or 5 hours in this multiplayer, we still don't know how to actually look at what the scores were from the last match. Like after they disappear, like we don't know where they go. We're like, well,
they're just gone. We don't know where they went.
If you did poorly, I guess that's good because, there's not as much of a record. No one can go back and look and say, who made us lose? Because we don't know where that screen is.
The answer's always Sneak.
From the beginning, there were some issues with this headquarters, which is kind of a new thing. It's like a social space where you can sort of basically, instead of sitting at like a screen that shows you the scores and then you vote on the next map and then you have access to your classes, you can actually hit like the start button and it'll take you into like this quote unquote headquarters, which is almost like a little military installation where you can run around with your character and like pick up different contracts and watch little videos. And then of course, I'm gonna drum roll here. Watch other people open loot boxes.
That sounds exciting.
Which I'm sure if you watch any gaming news, then you're familiar with that aspect of it. Yeah. But of course, I don't really pay as much attention to that. But it does kind of blow my mind. Like how long have they been doing this? How can they possibly still mess this up so bad? And on this, in terms of just this interface and the stability issues. And then I don't know if anyone else has watched. To me, it kind of leads to a bigger issue. I don't know if anyone's watched like some quick plays of like this new Battlefront game, but it is buggy as all get out, so to speak. Also, just with Nate talking about like Wolfenstein, like, I had read an article the other day that was saying after Paris Games Week, that crappy Journey-esque game that came out was like Ura or something.
Ure.
Like, and the person who was reporting on this said this game was announced and released. It was released the same day it was announced, and then they put I think they put like a comma, and then they wrote "as all games should be." And I guess that's not something I had really thought about because we're so used to the norm. But there's definitely a part of me that feels like, man, maybe that should always be the case. Maybe you should, because people seem to be so irritated whenever a game is delayed. So many games that are, released as these buggy, unplayable messes.
Yeah.
And I guess it just seems like, I don't know, maybe that's just where we live now, is Bugland.
Yeah, games are always broken, games are never done. That's the world we're in now.
Yeah, and I really feel like that, that I don't know the last time that I bought a game on day one. It actually might have been Skyrim, honestly, which also was a bad decision given that, franchise's history with technical bugs and stuff.
Yeah.
But
you went to the extreme on that one.
Boy, I did. I bought a brand new computer and put Skyrim on it, and then it crashed almost immediately, and I went, of course.
I was impressed though. I the load times on your new machine, then you had one of the early SSDs, and I was like, man.
Yeah, that was. I couldn't read the tips on the screen. It was kind of fun, but
you didn't even get to see that axe that spun around in circles.
I tried so hard to get that stuff to move on the screen. It just loaded too fast. PC Master Race problems. But like I really feel like you're almost best off like giving games. Like I used to think like just give it a couple of weeks for them to get the servers fixed. It feels like it's up to like 3 months now because you want to wait for the first big patch to drop. Not the release day patch, because there's always a day one patch. The day 92 patch, it actually fixes all the problems. It's like, because I've been reading about the headquarters stuff, just like not really working. And I'm like, come on, guys, this is 2017. Like we were having issues with Black Ops 1 getting into lobbies, and that was like a million years ago, it feels like. You think that they would have solved this problem, or at the very least they would just go and turn on 70, 100 extra servers on day one, just because everyone's going to be just hammering that because they're buying the game on day one. So come on, you should know how to fix that by now.
And I'm not even having this issue with like single player stuff that I play on PC, and it's like PC developers have to accommodate for all of these different potential builds and graphics cards. The PS4, I guess you've got the Pro, but pretty much, the hardware is uniform, Like, if it looks good in your living, if it looks good in your testing room, in your freaking game development studio, I guess, you got your online stuff, but I don't know. I guess to me, it's just kind of unbelievable, really. That this is still a thing.
Yeah, you'd want, making games is hard, and it's, if they're trying to hit a date and they just can't get stuff worked out by that date and they're required to ship it anyway, then I'm sure they know about all these bugs and making games is hard, but at the same time, when you have these franchises that have been going on forever, like Call of Duty or Elder Scrolls or whatever else, and they're just all like every release is still buggy. It's just like, can you guys not figure this out yet? Like, come on.
Yeah. And I know that, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know that anyone really necessarily cares about the new Call of Duty but me, and it's not, I mean, probably you would be justified in saying maybe it deserves to die and I hope it burns in hell. But at the same time,
escalated quickly.
Yeah, but at the same time, and there have been times I felt that way about the franchise. But I guess at the same time, for me, that's kind of where I am, Flex. It's like, you know, I mean, how many of these have we had? I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, granted, the headquarters is a new thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it takes you a second to get it sort of figured out. But I mean, you have all the money to get it figured out.
And they even have 3 teams. Like, it used to be that they were doing these in 2 years, and you know, maybe that's a little too quick to turn it around. But now they have 3 teams, so they're taking 3 years for every game. And yeah, they have so much. Their budget's huge. Their team size is huge. But I don't know.
I guess you just run out of excuses after a while. But anyway, it seems weird that the companies who have the most money are putting out the buggiest products.
Yeah. They're also making the most complicated games from like a technical standpoint.
That's fair.
Yeah, but that's why they're paid the big bucks.
Yeah, as someone who tests software for a living, there are a lot of ways that software can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So you know, getting off the soapbox of broken games coming out on release, did you have any other stuff that you wanted to bring up, Will?
No, not really. I mean, Orwell was probably the most interesting thing I played in the past 2 weeks, and I just thought it would be interesting to have a larger conversation about games that are broken on launch, and even broken 2 months after launch.
That's why you got to wait to month 3.
There you go.
Or month 7.
Or month 7. And if it's a Bethesda game, you can wait 6 years and wait for it to be released on the next generation of consoles.
Nice.
So, all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and after that, we will continue going around the panel. So we're going to step out for a minute. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Howdy, folks. We are back. ATACS episode number 26. We are adults talking about cool stuff, and it is time for Mr. Flex, who is an adult, to talk about some cool stuff. What you got, Flex?
Be careful calling me an adult. I don't know if that's true.
Well, you know, on the internet, no one really knows. So, you know, we're just going to go with it that way.
I see how you think, Paul.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I have embarked on this mad dash to play a bunch of games before the end of the year. You mentioned at the very top of this program about squeezing in stuff for Game of the Year, and that's very much where I'm at. And in the past 2 weeks, that was mostly Mario, which we've already talked about. The other game I have played from start to finish is Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus.
Yeah, that's not very long, right? That's an hour campaign.
Yeah, it was like a 10, 12-hour campaign. Somewhere in there. Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty short. I think I did it in like 3 days.
Did you play the first Wolfenstein?
I did, the New Order.
Yes.
Yes. Which I did not realize this, but that game actually story-wise picks up from the 2009 Wolfenstein, which I think was just called Wolfenstein.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah.
I played both of those games and I didn't know that.
That's funny.
Perfect.
But, sorry, really quick, I have to interject. I'm a graphic designer, and I just looked up the logo, and I am really in love with this type of
I took a bunch of screenshots playing Wolfenstein 2, and there are a handful of moments where just like the art and design of like the visual design of what's going on is just incredibly striking. Like the art direction in that game is incredible.
You should post some of those screenshots somewhere.
Yeah, I will do that. I'd be slightly concerned about like being slightly spoilery, but at the same time, like, I don't know, there's Nazis, like there's a bunch of Nazi imagery, like it's not going to be that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game, I really like the New Order. I think the direction they were taking the Wolfenstein franchise like was a really good new way to go. And the new Colossus continues that and like ramps it up to 11. Like this game is legit insane.
Right.
Like every time I think that's like, no, okay, like they won't go here. This is too ridiculous. And then they go there anyway.
Are we talking about like Captain America comics insane? Or are we talking about like Doom insane? Like what level of insanity are we making her insane? Not
so
here.
Yeah. So like the tone of this game is kind of all over the place, but like in a really fascinating way, because it's in the 1960s, I think, and as Wolfenstein always is, it's like alternate history where the Nazis won the war and they've taken over the world. And you spend a lot of time in this game. In the New Order, you were a lot in Europe. In this game, you're a lot in the US. And like, but in both games, like the Nazis like have come up with all this ridiculous technology and machinery, and on top of that, like all of the characters in the game are just incredibly eccentric, and just like their personalities are ridiculous. So like you're combining this ridiculous premise with ridiculous technology and ridiculous characters, and you can kind of envision like the directions that could go.
Right.
And they go all of those directions.
I could see that being sort of like some of the weirder like comic book. I mean, and I'm by no means a comic book aficionado, but if you think about like some of the alternate universe stuff for like Captain America with like the Red Skull, they definitely go places with like Germany winning the war or whatever.
Yeah. It is definitely very comic booky. I've not read a lot of comic books, so I can't make those direct comparisons, but it does have that kind of tone to it. But I think they also do a really good job at toggling back and forth between like serious heartfelt moments and then the really ridiculous cartoony over the top moments. And I think they execute both of those extremes really well. And I think that's ultimately what makes this game work. And I really like the story and the characters. And I think the pacing of the story and also like the execution and the voice deliveries and like the acting in the game is all really strong. And there was like a wide cast of characters that are really endearing, and like they pulled it off with the acting. Like they made it work. Like this game has some of the most natural, like just conversational dialogue I've heard in a game, I think. And yeah, it's really surprising like how well they pulled off a lot of this stuff. And like just like they'll like some of the characters, especially BJ, because he's kind of a meathead.
Yeah.
But,
right.
But like some of the like he'll have these really meatheady like sentences, but like the way he delivers them like imparts more nuance to them than you would have expected.
Okay.
And something about his voice and his like tone, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's
he's
like
so like genuine.
He is. Yeah, it's pretty great, and like a lot of the characters around him they're the cartoon characters that he gets to bounce off of. Like the main antagonist throughout the game, and she was in the New Order, Frau Engel.
She sucks.
Yeah, she is a really unlikable human being.
Yeah.
And
all right.
Yeah, and she was in the New Order, and she kind of takes center stage because the main antagonist in the New Order was Death's Head, and Frau Engel's kind of become the main villain in this one, and so she gets center stage a lot. And there are definitely a lot of scenes where it's like, wow, I really hate that woman. And she, she has her moments.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that.
All right.
There are a lot of other characters that have their moments. There are some characters that come into this game that I would not expect to see here, and I won't mention them for spoilery reasons, but let's just say it goes places. And right. There were probably on the order of 3 to 4 cutscenes in this game that are like surprisingly long, surprisingly involved, and completely bonkers. Like, this game, more than any other, like it's been years since I played a game that does this, where I'm just sitting there watching cutscenes like, is this really happening? Is this for real? And I'm just like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry or what. Like, this is insane.
I was gonna say, in a good way.
Yeah, it is a ride. It is great. Like for anyone who played the New Order, like they've taken like that direction and tone of that game and just pushed it like way further.
So would you? So like let's say someone has not played a Wolfenstein since Wolfenstein 3D on their MS DOS 386.
What have you been doing?
That would be me.
Fun fact: Wolfenstein 3D might be in this game.
That's really hilarious. So, like, where would you recommend someone start if this game? Because like this game sounds like it's really cool and it does a lot of cool things, and it's a great.
Yeah, this game's really awesome.
It's like a great sort of like set with great set piece moments. But I also know that the story is a direct continuation of the first one. But but you said there was another one before that, and then I just looked on Steam and there's something called The Old Blood or whatever that is. So like what do you need? What do you need to play to really appreciate this game and all of its ridiculousness?
Yeah, so the only thing you need to know going into Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus, is what happened in the New Order.
Okay.
That's the only thing you need to know. Whether you play it yourself or watch/read a summary, that's up to you. I would recommend playing it because it's not that long, but you could get the information you need from a summary. And that game has really good set pieces too. Like that was a really fun game on its own.
Yeah, that game's really good on its own right. I don't think it's like, oh, skip this so you can play the good one.
Yeah, like
I think they're both really good.
Yeah, definitely. Like I would suggest playing the New Order because that's a very good game. And playing the New Order by itself will get you what you need for the new Colossus. The Old Blood was a standalone expansion for the New Order that was like its own timeline weird thing. So like that has no bearing on the story. That's just like a goofy like side story thing.
It's also fun. I played it.
It's also really freaking good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Will is not wrong. I played that as well, and it's really entertaining. And it's interesting because like this is a very actiony first-person shooter, but like it tells a really strong story, I think, and has really great characters in it. And that's probably my favorite thing about it. Though I also really like the systems it has. Like if you judge a first-person shooter on the quality of its shotgun, then Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus is a damn good first-person shooter.
All right.
And you can also dual wield said shotguns, and you can run and slide and shoot the shotguns while you're sliding, and watch as Nazi limbs fly around the room.
Also sounds like fun. So
that's pretty good. It controls really well. Like this, I think the stealth mechanics, while simple, I think they work really well. For some reason, I don't know why this tickled me so much. The entire game, I found this endlessly amusing, is like you have these hatchets that you carry.
Okay.
And like that's kind of like if you sneak up on someone and do like a stealth kill, he like chops their leg off or whatever with a hatchet, or he hacks them in the crotch because that's what EJ does. But you can just like throw the hatchets as well. And for some reason, it was like the goofiest thing ever, just seeing this big meathead guy just like delicately throw this hatchet across a room, and it just sticks in someone's back and they just fall over. It was just like, I don't know, that was endlessly amusing to me.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. It's like super charming, and like the New Order and the New Colossus, like they just have some just like really crazy set pieces, and it's a good time all around. I really enjoyed it.
I have another game added to my backlog now. That's nice.
And I guess final thing I'll say is like I definitely know people have been having problems with this game on PC, but I played through it without having really any issues.
Okay.
Yeah,
I played it via Steam, and I shift tabbed once, and that caused it to crash, and that seems like a pretty common crash. But after that, I never pressed shift tab again, and it never crashed again.
Okay.
So I don't know what to say about that. But I guess different computers. I mean, computers are hard to. There's a lot of parts in there.
Yeah, I mean, your computer is definitely like newer and more high end than mine. So I don't know if my computer just won't be able to run that game, or if there will be a patch or what. But
yeah, it's hard to say. Like, is there just some random incompatibility with a certain part you have, or who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like the console versions of this game are pretty all right too. So if you were to go PS4, it seems like that wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Yeah.
It was published by Bethesda, so that's that could be part of the problem. It was like that they released a patch for it November 7th, but I'm sure there's more patches to come. Maybe I'll wait on that. The standard 3-month rule, right? So
Yep.
That
game's fun.
So was there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or did we already sort of get through everything with our Mario minute earlier?
Yep, that was it. Mario and Wolfenstein's been it for me.
All right, Mr. Ryan. I have seen some pictures posted of some Famicom games. What you been doing up there?
Yeah, I've been continuing my run through the FDS games. Finished Doki Doki Panic, and I have been starting. I'm probably actually about halfway through Zelda 2 now. Okay. Rinku no Boken. But it's taken me a little while because I am basically posting videos of these on YouTube. I kind of want to record these because they're fairly short and I think they're hopefully interesting. But it's Zelda 2 actually has been one of the more interesting games I've played so far. For me, at least, in terms of this adventure of checking out these retro Famicom games, because aside from the fact that Zelda 2 kind of has a bit of a special place in my heart, it also has had the most version differences that I've seen. For example, the original Mario was basically the same as the US cart version. So there was it was kind of neat, but there was really nothing there. And then, Doki Doki Panic is different, but in most ways it's just really a reskinned Mario 2.
Right.
So Zelda 2 has been interesting because they have used, I think, the sound chip in some interesting ways, and there are actually some version differences with the way that you level up and stuff like that. So it's still the same game, it's still familiar. It's just been one of the more interesting kind of, I guess, it's had some more meaningful differences than the other games which I've been playing.
Okay.
But yeah, after I finish Zelda 2, I have a couple other games. I have Metroid, Famicom Wars, things like that I'm hoping to at least spin up and touch on. But I may put those on pause for a little bit so I can also focus on getting at least 3 or 4 2017 games in before GO2Y. But yeah, while I was doing some video editing between probably Mario 2 and Doki Doki Panic, I did manage to squeeze in Azure Striker Gunvolt.
What is that?
Just as a side note, I don't know that I would really recommend that game, but I guess I figured it was worth mentioning.
Azure Striker Gunvolt. Okay, I just found it. It's on Steam. Yeah,
there have been a couple of recent games that, like Shantae and Azure Striker Gunvolt, that kind of, I guess, follow on some of those legacy NES and SNES titles. Azure Striker Gunvolt specifically is sort of like a Mega Man-ish.
Yeah, that's title. What I was going to ask. That's a very Mega Man style game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I guess the PC version is absolutely not good. It's a 3DS game. The PC port is not it's not very stable. They don't really scale it well. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But at its core, it is a very Mega Man-y game with kind of an anime-ish storyline. They do have this interesting lock-on system, but outside of that, it doesn't really do anything that exciting. Plus the version being kind of so bad, the translation being kind of so bad to the PC, I think it just ended up. It's that was okay. That was a game.
Yeah. I don't know. It just kind of as you were talking, I was sort of just skimming through some of the some of the stuff about it, and I kind of getting that same vibe that you're talking about. It just it doesn't look necessarily bad, but I don't really see it really jumping out at me for anything that it's doing, different or unique.
Yeah, part of the reason that I looked into it is because I think it has kind of grabbed some people who maybe they really like those old style games, or maybe they kind of liked what it was doing, and I can kind of see that. But for me, and again, part of this I think is just because, with things like resolution, game crashes, you can tell it was made for twin screens, and they don't really translate that. It just, the PC version just really doesn't work that well.
That's sad.
But yeah, other than those kind of notes, the only other thing I wanted to mention is my brother and I have still been continuing our adventures in Azeroth and Argus in World of Warcraft, but it is kind of interesting because, we started playing maybe around May or June, and we've really enjoyed it. I mean, I think Blizzard has done a good job in a lot of ways of the current content and making legacy content accessible and kind of making things like raid content more accessible to casual players. Like, there are lower difficulties that you can play with pickup groups, but we're kind of reaching this point. So we've leveled up, we have our main characters, and we went back and we leveled up some alternate characters, a monk and demon hunter, to the level cap, and we've been gearing them up. But we're kind of hitting this point where I guess we're at an MMO's end game.
Right.
And we're kind of looking at it, and it's like, okay, to progress at this point, we probably really need to start thinking about doing like some committed raiding. And that's where he and I are kind of, we're debating it, and, it may be that we end up falling off. And I think that's, this is probably a bigger discussion, but that's something that a lot of MMO end games have an issue with, is the way to balance things between casual and committed players.
Yeah, and I feel like that WoW has actually done a very good job, better than most MMOs, where they make all of their content, all of their in-game content, like super accessible. With the looking for group tools, looking for raid tools, and after a while, it seems like that they do a pretty good job of, like, whenever they release a new raid, then they'll tone down the old one a bit just to make it easier for a pickup group to be able to just kind of get through it all. I mean, the gear may not be as good, but again, if you're just interested in seeing the encounters, seeing the content, catching a cutscene at the end or something like that, I think WoW does a better job of that than most MMOs. But you definitely do hit that point where it's like, all right, I've got all these purples, but in order for me to get better purples, I gotta stop doing other things, and that's when it gets kind of difficult, Yeah,
it's like you said. I mean, they've done a really good job, maybe better than a lot of MMOs I've seen, but there is still definitely some, I think, room for improvement, because the cut is not completely clear. Like, I mean,
Gotcha.
I've run some of the current content like on quote unquote normal difficulty. And maybe it's like, okay, well, if you want to be casual, you can do that. But then, going to heroic is the next step up. It's kind of hard to see where that cut lies. And then, you've got all the RNG as well. That's just really painful. It's like, I could run this raid and not get like a set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I get a set piece, but because I didn't get a lucky roll that it's better than average, like, it's not worth anything. So,
right.
So yeah.
Just a quick question for you. Do you have any interest in playing WoW Classic when that comes out?
Really, no.
Okay.
I mean, especially without any quality of life adjustments, but to me, like, I'm a casual player. Like, really, I like playing MMOs, but usually I like playing them maybe with one other person.
Right.
So, like, when my brother and I, when we go into dungeons, if we're comfortable with what we're doing, like, we can just pull the group along with us, because, you have two strong players, you can make a dent in like a 5-man encounter. But, 40-man raids, 25-man raids, like,
that's a little harder.
It's just a lot of commitment to a group of people, who
right.
you have no idea who they are.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, yeah. So, they did announce the new WoW expansion. I did see that. Then they did that at the last BlizzCon. And that's the same place that they announced WoW Classic, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, there's after how many years now? Like 13 years. They're still plugging along.
2004. Yeah, I guess it's.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No. Not sure if or when we may well be bouncing off a WoW and what we'll be getting into. That could be an interesting thing to see what's next. Maybe like a Grim Dawn or another MMO.
I recommend Star Trek
Ryan,
Online.
I just posted a list of the top 5 co-op games of the year. I'm just kidding.
So let's see, Steph. I know that you've been playing a couple of things. Anything that you want to talk about?
I mean, I've been playing Mario Odyssey as well, but we've talked about that, and I'm nowhere near as done as Nate and Flex are. But I did pick up, really because I was just bored and sitting at my computer and drunk, and I was going to play Dream Daddy again. But then I noticed that I have a Tales of game that I haven't played that I bought like a year ago called Tales of Zestiria.
Mm-hmm.
And I loaded that up. Now I'm a pretty big console gamer. I don't like, if it comes to any of my RPGs, I like my controller. But again, I was drunk and just trying to, waste time. And it turned out I really liked this game a lot, so much that I think this is the next game I'm playing. I might actually even put Mario on the back burner for now to play this game.
Wow.
Nice. By the way, I want a new podcast segment for every episode hosted by Steph called I Was Drunk and...
Oh, that would be very exciting.
A lot of great things happen when I'm drunk.
Yeah.
See, we were both drinking at the same time, and when I get drunk, I just play Banished. I don't have any explanation for that. That's just what happens. So.
I think it's because you like to feel like a god over these people, and you're like, no props for you this year.
No, I think it's more like, I get really focused in on like the numbers, so I'm just playing. I mean, that's what Banished is, just like Resource Simulator 3000. So that's kind of all I did yesterday.
Yeah. Banished is one of those games where when I played it, I felt like it was a game like one of those classic 90s Sims that you could kind of lose yourself in. But
oh yeah, that's what it is.
I was like, well, I got other stuff going on and there aren't any missions or anything, so like I don't really want to jump into this rabbit hole, but like this game seems like it could have been built up to be a little bit more.
Yeah, it's real fun.
I have about 100 hours in that game too. It's really fun.
So how much of this Tales game have you played so far?
I've only played about 4.5 hours.
Okay.
But I can tell you, so I'm not a Tales of expert, but I have played a lot of the titles.
Yeah, I was going to ask which ones you played.
I have played Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Symphonia 2, Tales of the Abyss, Tales of Zillia. Tales of Fate something, it doesn't matter. I hated that game.
Yeah, you've played more than I would have guessed. I think you qualify as a Tales expert.
And now I'm playing. My favorite Tales of game is Tales of Zestiria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the answer for best Tales of game is always either Symphonia or Vesperia.
Yeah, pretty much. But I don't know. I have to say, because it's the main characters are hit and miss in these games for me. But that's what really drew me into this one. Like, so far, nothing is really standing out as really too different from other Tales games. But the main character, I didn't hate him in the first 2 seconds. Tales of the Abyss too. I played that, if I didn't mention it. Yeah, just the characters are so good. Like, I actually care about what's happening to them. So nice. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to report. It, like every Tales game, there's too many options, there's too many controls, there's too many tutorial screens. I ignored all of them. I'm going to click the button where I swing my sword around. And eventually I'll come to a place where I either need to grind more or I'll go into the tutorial screen and
try to figure it out.
Figure it out from there. But for right now, I'm just smashing the space bar and clicking the mouse and, using what I know from the other games so far, and it's getting me through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. Beautiful. And it's not even the most recent, and it's just beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I played any of the Tales of games. Well, wait, there was one that came out on Game Boy Advance. I think I played that for like an hour and went, I don't want to play this anymore. I think actually, it might have been yours, Flex. I'm not 100% sure where it came from.
The only one I've played is Symphonia. I don't think I ever had a GBA one. I don't even know what that'd be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Symphonia is really, is really great.
I always wanted to play Vesperia, but finding
Yes.
time for a giant JRPG is difficult.
Yeah.
So, Tales of Vesperia probably has one of my favorite protagonists from any video game. Well, particularly from the JRPG perspective, because he's not whiny, he's not emo, he's just a cool guy. You don't hate him for any reason.
If he's not emo, I'm out.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Go play Final Fantasy VIII again. And
I want my JRPGs to be emo.
I do have to say, anyone that wants to get into the Tales of game, like my hard recommendation would definitely be Tales of Vesperia.
Yeah, I actually own Vesperia and I've wanted to play it. I just, time.
Life is hard.
I also think Tales of the Abyss, it's older, and you really hate the protagonist in the beginning, but he is probably the most dynamic character I have ever witnessed in a video game, because he turns from being someone you hate and loathe being to someone you sympathize with to someone who you kind of feel cool playing. It's a really great story arc.
Nice.
Awesome.
I don't have a lot to say. It feels good. I'm smashing the keyboard. I'm smashing the mouse, and the numbers are going up, so I'm happy.
It sounds like every single Diablo-esque game ever, even though it's totally not. So, did you have anything else you want to talk about, stuff, or just pretty much that?
No, it's really just that. I'm coming up on my Christmas break from school, so hopefully I'll have more to talk about next time.
All right. Let's see. What have I been doing other than Banished? I've been doing that. Been doing some Star Trek Online off and on still. I really kind of tapered off on that, so I think that the MMO itch is starting to finally subside. And other than that, the only thing I've been doing is Dark Souls, and I'm about 6 hours in now. And
Dark Souls the third, correct?
Dark Souls the third, yes. I'm about 6 hours in, according to my save file, and yeah, I'm actually still really enjoying it.
Nice.
I have not had any what I would call like spots where I've gotten like hard stuck. There were a couple of times when like I felt like I just kind of cheesed the game, but then I didn't feel bad about cheesing the game because it's Dark Souls.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Dark Souls is never feel bad about cheesing.
Yeah, there were a couple of enemies in like near the start of the game that they're just like normal dudes, but then they explode out into whatever that massive goo is, and I never did figure out how to actually kill those guys. So I just ran straight up to the little guys before they like morphed, and I just stabbed them like right in the face, and just duck rolled away from all the other little guys, and that worked out pretty well. And I just beat one of the optional bosses. It took about 4 tries. The giant tree, which was very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Big tree.
And,
I burnt the tree.
Yeah.
What kind of character are you playing? You're maybe still feeling that out some. You're kind of in the early stages, and with that game's leveling system. But yeah, like what are you leaning into at the moment?
I'm level 24, so I did a bit of grinding, and I am a sword and shield knight, just straight up. I put my shield up whenever I'm walking around, and that's very useful.
Yep.
And yeah, so I just got to the point now to where I can effectively use a healing spell, so that helps out for exploration a little bit, so I don't burn through my Estus flask as fast, and I can now use a bow, which is also useful in that game. So yeah, I'm doing pretty well at it, I think. So I probably I don't know how far of the way through the game I am. But I will say that the second little area is called like the Undead Settlement. I found the last bonfire there, and I have explored all the way down one path, and that led to the tree boss. Now I'm going to explore down another path, and I feel like I'm getting close to the end of that area, which I guess once I beat the boss there, that would put me maybe a fifth of the way through the game, something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a long one.
Yeah, but the good news is like I haven't really gotten too terribly frustrated with it yet. But I can definitely tell after about an hour and a half or 2 hours, I just get worse at the game. So once I start dying to little things, that's when I just turn it off, and then I'll come back the next day. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's I think that's like, it's the last one, and I think it's the one that's like the most refined of those games.
Yeah.
So I would guess there's probably just less frustrations in general. So yeah, definitely, I'm very eager to see how the Chronicles of Paul and Dark Souls 3 goes, because I mean, it sounds like you're doing just fine with it. If you pace yourself properly.
Yeah, I mean the game scared the crap out of me for the first time yesterday. I was in this like sewer kind of part, and then there was some fog up ahead, and I'm like, I know there's something in this fog, and then there was like a little like there's like a little thing on the ground that's like, be wary ahead. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah. So I just like put up my shield and I'm walking, and then like nothing happens. I'm almost to the end of the fog, and then out of nowhere, this like enormous rat just dives at me, and I was just like, bah! And I did some rolling and some ducking, and it ended up killing the thing in like 3 hits. So it really wasn't that hard, but it just scared the crap out of me. And there's still a couple of odd things. Like there's a couple of monster types that are just like, they're not like little enemies, but they're not like bosses either. And I don't know what it is, but like I still have a tough time with some of those types. So it's like whenever I see this like certain, it's like a caster that wears a big hat, I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna lose like 3 Estus flasks on this guy. And it doesn't matter that I've killed him 10 times. I haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do with him, so I just sort of flail my face at it and then run away. So, but anyway, that's my that's my Dark Souls update. More to come there, and that's really about all that I wanted to get into. The rest of the stuff that I've been doing is not terribly interesting. Yeah, so this is the part of the show where we're gonna figure out what everyone's got coming up. I know everyone's trying to finish stuff up for Game of the Year. Nate, we'll start with you. What do you have on your plate coming up the next couple of weeks?
Pretty much Evil Within 2, and then hopefully Wolfenstein 2.
All right, Will. What about you?
Well, I don't know on the single player front, but I will say multiplayer. I'll probably play some more of this World War II. Hopefully, the stabilization will improve. And then still working on Divinity Original Sin 2 whenever we get the whole crew together. It's a four-man operation, so it's hard to coordinate.
Gotcha. All right. Flex, what you got on your backlog there?
Yeah, I got a nice chunk of, I don't know, half a dozen games at least that I want to try and finish by the end of the year. But I think next I'm going to try and tackle that Nier Automata.
All right.
Let's get anime, folks.
So just on that note, what's the temperature on the panel? I think we have 2 dislikes and 1 like so far.
I mean,
I like that game.
I know Nate liked it. I think Steph and I did not like it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe in between.
There's some positive and there's a lot of negative.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah,
a little positive, a lot of negative.
Did we sell that game back, Steph? Do we still have it?
Hell yeah, we sold it back. It was like worth $30 still.
So I'm going to buy Steph Nier Automata for Secret Santa.
I think you're too late.
Oh, that's funny. All right, yeah, I'm kind of interested too, because I didn't really have any interest in picking up and playing that game. I feel like I read a lot of stuff on the internet that's like says it's like the potential Game of the Year candidate, and I'm like, I just don't. I didn't see it. Like I watched Steph play it, and I was like, I'm good.
I'm really curious. I don't think Flex will get into the stuff that appeals to a lot of those people, but I am curious to see where he falls on it.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting cases, and this happens every now and then, where it's like the reception is very divisive, and it's like I can't get a sense, because like everyone either loves or hates this game, and it's hard for me to get a sense of whether I'd like it or not. So like I just have to try it.
Right.
Like there's no amount of looking at online reception that would tell me if I'd like it, so I just have to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I keep hearing things about like the story taking some turns, but I think what I'm going to do is before Game of the Year, I'm probably just going to sit down with YouTube and just watch a lot of that. Just
everything I keep hearing is it's like the end of the second playthrough is where things get nuts.
Yeah, and I don't think that the game was interesting enough to me to actually want to want to play through it, but I do want to see what that story is because people keep talking about it, so I'm probably going to YouTube it.
And this has been a strong year for stories anyway. Like, I mean, I even just played Wolfenstein II and thought that had a strong story. So
yeah, which, you know, I enjoy the kinds of games like Wolfenstein II more than I enjoy the kinds of games like Nier as far as the gameplay goes. So I probably will play Wolfenstein. I'm definitely not going to play Nier.
Side note for you, Paul, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you play any of the Wolfenstein games, knowing you, I would say take that difficulty all the way down to easy.
Oh, I was already planning on it. Like I listened to one of the gaming podcasts that I listened to, and then they were like, "Man, this game was oddly challenging," and I'm like, "Nope, not for me." Turning that all the way down.
I played it on normal and didn't find it quite as challenging as a lot of people said, but like it's not a cakewalk either. So like I would say, knowing what I know about you, just start off just all the way down.
Yep, I'm planning on it. Ryan, what you got coming up here in the next couple?
Well, I hope to finish out Zelda 2, and then, like I mentioned, I have a couple more Famicom things I want to get to, but I may put those on hold to play probably either Mario Odyssey or maybe Prey.
Okay, sounds like fun. So let's see, Steph. I know you're still going to do some Zestiria. Do you have anything else that you wanted to try to get done with?
No. Oh, yeah, I want to get through Mario. But yeah, I think I'm going to just play some Zestiria.
Okay. Let's see. For me, I'm still going to do the Dark Souls, but I'm kind of juggling. It's like, well, if I can really only play Dark Souls for like an hour and a half per day before I just start getting bad at the game, then I'm probably going to pick up something else and start playing through that, which will more than likely be Mario, because I know Mario's a bit easier. So yeah, probably be a mix between Dark Souls and Mario. So, and the Discord chat is going insane right now. So I'm going to go ahead, call it here. This is ATACS episode 26. We're going to come back in Nier. Nate loves Nier.
Nier is best.
We're going to come back in your feeds in 2 weeks for a regular ATACS episode. Look for a Persona 5 spoiler cast sometime between now and the end of the year.
Yes, that's a good point. Persona 5 spoiler cast soon, and we also did a Pyre spoiler cast.
Yes, so there's
spoiled.
Yes, Pyre is completely spoiled. And then we're looking at our Game of the Year podcast probably sometime between Christmas and New Year's in that space where a lot of people are off of work. So it's going to be a busy next few weeks for all of us here. So we're going to
play them video games.
We're going to talk about them video games. And
rest in peace, Miiverse.
Indeed. Rest in peace, Miiverse. Shout out to Miiverse. Goodbye. And we will see you back in about 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.